So basically, this is what we've got to do in the next 2 weeks. Either we're going to have 1 week left. This is that having no deal at all, and this over here is safety, climate safety, and presumably climate safety is what we all, seeing as we're dependent on the atmosphere remaining habitable, presumably we all want that. But as you can see, all these countries have different points towards safety, and there's some very key important points. One is the Suicide Pact, and that's basically a deal that gets agreed where we are committed to entering runaway climate change. Runaway climate change, as Mark was supposed to say earlier but didn't, is where we hit 2 degrees, 1.5, 2 leads to 3, 3 leads to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. Basically, it gets unstoppable. There's nothing more we can do about it. By the time we hit 6 degrees, it's about over for life on Earth. So that's the Suicide Pact deal. Then there is the coin flip deal, which is what countries like the EU and the UK, we're going to get into the detail, but they want, and basically that would give us a 50-50, a coin flip chance of entering runaway climate change. And then, going past that, there is the option that we could get a better deal. We could get into the good chance deal, which is basically, excuse me, Mark, which is basically above 50-50. And then beyond the good chance is the even better chance, and then we get there and we're safe. So that's it. Mark, you're going to say where the countries are.
Can I come back now?
Yeah, where they are. This is the beginning of the week, before Copenhagen.
Okay.
And you're going to explain and move them as they've moved,
right.
but
So
not too many.
So this is bad and this is good, right?
Exactly. So
okay.
bad. Let's start with some bad guys.
Let's start with somebody who
He's
appears to have
lying
died.
down. Yeah.
This is Saudi Arabia. They've basically committed harakiri or whatever they do, because Saudi Arabia tries to block every single deal. Nothing to do at all with being an oil-producing country.
No.
Absolutely, completely unrelated. Canada.
They even brought up climate denial in the opening.
They did.
plenary,
I'd forgotten about that actually. So the whole climate gate email
Yeah.
saga that's been blowing on for the last 2 weeks,
They brought it
Saudi
up in the
Arabia
opening
brought it
plenary.
up and tried to say that this undermined the science, and therefore we shouldn't even be discussing global warming because it doesn't exist.
So I think they should go back a bit, don't you?
They can fall off that board here.
Yeah.
Canada is also pretty much in the bad zone here, because their emissions reduction proposal
Yeah.
is 3% on 1990 levels, right? So they only want to reduce their emissions by 3%,
right.
Not a huge amount.
Is that when they came to Copenhagen or now? Have they moved?
They haven't moved. This is what they started with.
Okay,
And
so
it's-
they're staying still.
Exactly, and
Okay.
it's basically the same position as the US.
US?
We're giving the US a bit more leeway, though.
Why are they so much further ahead than Canada?
The US shouldn't actually be that much further ahead than Canada, to be honest. But we're giving
Very
them
technical, this.
we're giving them a bit more leeway because they've got a new administration. Canada
Okay.
basically just
Who
follows
is
the
that guy?
US. They haven't this Obama bloke.
Yeah.
I don't really know much
I
about
hear he
him.
won a prize yesterday.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Who else do you want to talk about? Australia, New Zealand.
Yes, let's talk about them.
Now, Australia actually is doing pretty well. If you take it on 1990 levels, they're going to reduce their emissions by 13%. So they're a little bit further forward on the
But they're
bar
only
here.
saying 13% if everybody else does theirs too.
Yeah, look, many of these targets are conditional, and
Right.
they're also judged on different baselines, so it's actually very difficult to compare them all. But if we look at this collective
these
group
guys
here is
here?
the EU as a
Right.
whole. Now, the EU is going to reduce its emissions by between 20 and 30% on 1990 emissions by
So
2020.
by 2020.
Right, but
That's quite
20%.
significant, right?
20% is the offer on the table at the moment.
Yeah.
It'll go up to 30% if you get a good deal out of Copenhagen.
So that's what the EU is going for, right? 30% by 2020.
Yeah.
If that got accepted, and if all the rich countries cut their emissions by that much, it would still, where would it be on here? It'd be beyond suicide, less than coin flip.
it would be right into coin flip, I think,
Okay.
because what counts, of course, is the 2050 target, because this is long-term emissions, and the EU proposal is actually to have emissions cut by 80 to 95% by 2050. So
Okay.
that's pretty serious.
Not
That's almost dealing with the problem.
And why is our country in the lead on the EU?
Well, we have
Is it because of the age of stupid?
Yeah, we're part of the EU, so we have the same broad targets as
Yeah.
the EU as a whole. But we have a legally binding climate change act.
Yep.
So we're the only country in the world which actually has mandated its government legally to actually to reduce the emissions by the amount that it says it's going to. That's very important.
And I'm going to put this country on its head for reasons
Why is
which will
that?
become
Oh,
clear
okay.
in the next bit. Anything else? Just give us a couple more.
Well, where's China?
Where's
Can you see
India and
China?
China? There they are.
There's India and China. And these countries are even more complicated because
Yeah.
under Kyoto they didn't have any targets because they're developing countries. They haven't caused a problem. They need to grow their economies,
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Which
Now,
you agree with, right? We agree with.
that's irrelevant. The point is that they have committed to targets for the first time ever at Copenhagen, but these
Right.
targets are not
So that's a
reduction
major
targets.
move forward then,
But these,
committed.
hold on a sec, because these targets are targets of intensity, cutting the intensity, so the amount of carbon they produce per unit of GDP.
But don't they get to
So
move forward
China
just for committing to
so
something?
China's target is to reduce its emissions by 45% by 2020. Below business as usual in terms of its carbon intensity, right? I'm not even doing
It's
a very good
supposed
job
to be
of explaining
making
about
it
this. So actually it could increase its absolute emissions by 100%,
Right.
whilst reducing the emissions
I
intensity
see.
by 45%. So it's the
So we'll
absolute
leave them
emissions
there.
that count
Okay.
as far as the climate's concerned.
Let's just have one good guy, because then we have to move on.
One
Give
good
us
guy.
one really good guy.
Well, all of these are good guys. These three here have carbon neutral targets. Norway by 2030, Costa Rica by 2021,
Meaning the whole economy is going to go carbon neutral.
Maldives by 2019.
When did they announce that they were going to go carbon neutral?
In March, I think.
Yeah, where was that?
The launch of some film or other. I can't remember what it was called.
The whole economy is going to go carbon neutral in 10 years.
Yeah,
That's
and
brilliant.
in fact, I'm one of the people in charge of actually making this happen.
Good.
So,
So stop wasting your time here. So basically,
Yeah.
if all the countries of the world were going to do that, then we would be climate safe.
yes, if all the countries end up
Well-
in this safety zone here and have carbon neutral targets within a fairly short space of time, obviously the countries which are Maldives, it's easier because they're quite a small emitter. They're a small country. They've got quite low per capita emissions.
Yeah.
I mean, to get the US to have a carbon neutral target, well, that's still a long way to go. If we do that, then we are all in the safety zone.
Well, we've got another 5 days to talk about all these lovely things, but now we're going to go to a video which we filmed earlier, and we need the board for this, Sarah, because it's very important, and it's not that one. Can't get the stuff, and it's a really important one, so take your time, because this is the stupid show. Every single one of our interviews, I can't believe you haven't got it. This is the best joke of the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to say it, and you're all going to have to imagine it. All of our interviews that we're going to film in the Stupid Show are going to rhyme with the person's name, and so that is why this interview is called On My Head with Ed. Okay, we're going now to Ed with Ed. Oh God, no pressure. Jesus. So, Ed, 1 week left to go to save the world. How's it going?
It's going not badly.
Yeah?
There's still a long way to go,
Yeah?
but I'm optimistic. I think you've seen lots of countries come forward with their plans, and there's further to go, and we're going to push for more ambition.
What are the main stumbling blocks for the next few days?
We need finance, we need cuts in emissions, we need action across the board, we need action on forestry, and we need a legal treaty as soon as possible
So plenty to
after
do.
Copenhagen.
Whoa, shit. So, even if you did get the deal that you wanted,
Yeah.
it would still only give us a 50-50 chance of not hitting runaway climate change coin flip. Why so low?
Well, we want the maximum ambition we can get. That's why it's important the EU goes to 30%. That's why it's important that we push everyone, China, the US, Brazil, to do as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
That's what we're about in the next week. It's not just about any old deal. It's about an ambitious agreement.
So you
we're
might
going
go
to be
further
going
than
all
the coin flip, further than 40%
We
cut.
want to go further than
Yeah.
that. We want to go as far as we can. Look, the most important thing, though, to get out of this deal is if we can peak global emissions by 2020, we will do what the world has never done before.
Yeah.
Because throughout our industrial history, as you know, emissions have been going up.
Yep. So if you were the dictator of the world, imagine it for a minute, I'm sure you have late at night, but what deal would you get? If you were writing the deal on your own, what would the deal be?
I would get the most ambitious deal that we can. I would get a deal that peaked emissions, because I think that is the most
2050,
important
yeah.
thing, as soon as we
And then
can.
go to zero, kind of 2030, 2040?
Well, we'll see
We're
about.
saying hypothetically, if you're the dictator.
We'll see about zero. But look,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the difference between you and me. I mean, I'm trying to get countries who don't necessarily want
Yeah,
to move as far as they can. And I think it's really important in this to neither be overly pessimistic nor overly optimistic. The truth is the world has moved a massively long way thanks to your film, your campaigns,
Cheers, Ed.
1010,
Cheers,
the whole thing. That has moved people.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's important to say that.
So do you
but on
think
the other
all-
hand, we shouldn't be falsely optimistic
Yeah.
because
There's only
even
4
if
days
we,
left.
there's only 4 days left, and then there's decades afterwards.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we've got to get the deal in Copenhagen, and then, if you like, that is the end of the beginning,
Yeah.
because then the hard work really starts.
And do you think ordinary people have got any role to play in terms of getting the deal in the next 4 days?
Definitely, they've got a role to play.
What's their role?
Well,
I mean,
the-
does it influence you?
It does influence us. And look, the wave made a big difference.
Yeah.
I've been talking to NGOs here who've been talking to the Obama administration, other countries, about what they want from them.
Yeah.
Look, the good thing about this, and this is why it's been a success so far,
Yeah.
but we can't declare success, is that political leaders are feeling the heat. They're going to all be coming here. They know they've got to be ambitious. They know the world is watching. What you and I think, always feared was that the world would just let this thing pass by.
Yeah.
I don't think we can say that 35,000 people, the world's media, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, you say that, but then 2 million people marched on the streets against the Iraq war, and your chum still went to war. So,
Look,
does it influence politics?
But in the end, politicians have to decide. But
Yeah.
anyone who thinks popular pressure doesn't make a difference
Right.
is wrong.
Right.
Popular pressure does make a difference. We saw the wave on Saturday. I think that was a very good demonstration of this. We've seen actions all around the world. I think they make a difference. So I think people who are watching this, people who have been involved, should think they have made a difference. But the other thing is the work does not finish on December the whatever it is. In a sense, Yeah, the 18th. Thank you. Well, I think it probably may well be after that.
You've got to go meet the Indians.
But then